Okay, so I actually will say hello again. As I said, we've had over 450 people register for this event, titled What Schools Need to Know. And I've looked through the list of attendees, and as I say, I know some of you personally, and I know some of you from other educational settings and meetings that I've attended, and other roles that I've had in the past. So I'm really pleased to welcome you all here tonight. We are recording the session, as Hamish says, and there is going to be a question and answer session at the end. If we don't answer your question in enough detail, I'm going to put up some email addresses, and also we will take them out of the question and answer section, and we will create a frequently asked questions list, which we will then email you the responses to. What I would like is if you can hold on to your questions until towards the middle or end of the session. I think you might find that more valuable, because I am hoping that I will be able to give you as much information as possible during this first part that might answer many of the questions that you have. So I make no apologies really, because the audience here tonight is really diverse. We have done some events previously which have been directed more towards teaching school hubs, or large multi-academy trusts, or large groups of schools that want to be delivery partners. And if there's anybody on this event that would like us to talk to you individually for another hour and do a separate partnership meeting, we'd be more than happy to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start right back to basics. Because I spoke to an executive lead the other day, and I said to him, I said, what do you know about ECF? And he said, it sounds like an electricity company. And having been a head teacher, I am well aware of all of the pressures at the moment, not just because we're reopening after COVID, but because of all of the different things like the new teacher assessments that we've got to do for year 6 and 11 and 13, but also all of the strategic planning that we normally do for a school going forward. And I am well aware that the ECF is a new initiative. So what's the background to the ECF? And I'm going to also give you sort of like a little table of acronyms, because the ECF is the Early Careers Framework. And back in March 2020, the DfE, the Secretary of State, announced a golden thread that was going to run through CPD for teachers. They revised the initial teacher training, and they wanted this to run through into the first 2 years of a new teacher's profession through to school leadership, offering that clear progression throughout their career so that we can really ensure that we have high quality teachers that we keep, that we retain. And as I say to you, having been a head teacher before, most important to me is that the training that we deliver ultimately impacts on the children's outcomes. Because, there's a lovely quote that anything that we do, if it doesn't impact on the children, then it's either an indulgence or a waste of time. So, it's really, really important that we get the early career framework and the training right as we go through. So let's have a look at that golden thread that they talked about. As I said, the initial teacher training was revised and the core content framework revised. And then they created the early career framework. And the DfE are now supporting teachers in the first 2 years of their career with a real structured induction programme. And I'll go on to talk about the funding that's available to schools for that in a moment. The MPQs have been revised as well, and there's a new head teacher programme that builds on this foundation. And what we really want to do at Best Practice is we want to ensure that career progression. So our early career framework training doesn't repeat what they have done in their ITT year, and it doesn't repeat something that they might go on to do in years 3 or 4 when they might do a specialist MPQ. And we want to make sure that that progression goes throughout their career. On the other hand, we do appreciate at the moment that some of the ITT students going into their first role may need some more support with some of the fundamentals because they've missed out on some of the training. And our programme allows for us to do this, for some people to go into depth in a particular module, or to actually skim it if they feel that they are a real expert and they've got real in-depth knowledge on it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in our programme. So we've got this revised suite of the MPQs, which I talked about, and this shows that golden thread, and it talks about the evidence that is going to be needed for a teacher to move through and progress through their CPD in their career. So what options are available to you as schools? What do you need to know about the early career framework? So the first option is that you can actually create your own full 2-year package. So you can design a 2-year induction programme, which is based on the early career framework, and you can deliver it yourselves. Option 2 is where you would take the core induction programme. So this is something that was developed by 4 providers last year, and the DFE have accredited it. And it is where the mentors have mentor meetings with the early career teacher once a week, and the early career teacher works through a set of modules. So you can take the core induction programme, which has been accredited by the DFE, as I said, and then you can develop and deliver your own training for ECTs and for mentors. The alternative, option 3, which the DFE are recommending that schools take up, is fully funded. And this is what we are offering. We are offering a full induction programme. This is whereby we've got a core induction programme, which is tailored to the mentor meetings and the ECT modules on a weekly basis, where they will undertake self-study. And then we have developed a full training programme for the early career teachers and their mentors. So let's have a little look. And I know funding does come up as a question, but this is the information that the DFE have currently given about funding. They have said that they are going to provide direct to schools funding for the additional activity in year 2. Because remember, a new teacher, so an NQT as we all used to know it, would have had the 10% off timetable and would have had a mentor in their first year. Now, the early career framework is based on the 2-year structured programme, and they're offering funding for this additional activity in year 2. Because the teachers, the ECTs, will have 5% off timetable in year 2, and also the mentors will be supporting them. So there is additional funding to backfill the mentor time that is undertaken in training, and that's 36 hours. We don't have any further detail at the moment on the amount of money that is available for that. And in addition, there is also funding for the time off timetable for the mentors. You can see here, this is the table taken from the DFE, that they have taken the average cost, or the average salary, sorry, of an ECT's salary, and the average of a mentor's salary, and it's according to where you are in the country, whether it's England, inner London, and you can see, or outer London and fringe areas. So that's the funding that is available directly to schools. Right, and I did promise you the use of abbreviations. So the ECF, the early career framework. Then we've got the early career teacher. So that's the person who is obviously in their first 2 years of teaching. The early career mentor. Then we've got the core induction programme. And I'm going to go on to explain exactly what makes up the core induction programme. And then we've got the full induction programme. We've also got the appropriate body, because they have still got a role within this process. And you've got your ITT, your initial teacher training, and newly qualified teacher, which we still refer to. So what makes up the ECF? The ECF is made up essentially of 4 parts. The first 2 bullet points make up the core induction programme. So the early career teacher will do self-directed study. So let me take, for example, in the first half term of autumn, they will be doing the module 1. And that module 1 is focused around, for example, classroom behaviours and routines. And it's about getting that behaviour right to ensure that the learning is as good as it can be within the classroom. And they will do self-directed study. So they will undertake some reading, they will implement some of the ideas into their classroom, and then they will have their mentor meeting where they will discuss how successful it is. And they will then discuss what progress they need to make and what improvements they can make and what strengths they've got in order to move forward with their training. And that will include module audits, which will look at and assess their level of understanding of their knowledge and how they've been able to apply that learning. So those 2 parts make up the core induction programme. On top of the core induction programme, there is then 36 hours of ECT training and 36 hours of mentor training. And again, I'll go on to talk a little bit more about that in detail. So the ECF is presented around the teacher standards and around the criteria in the early career framework. But let me be really clear, it is not to be used for assessment. So a number of questions have already come into us about What evidence base does an ECT need to collect? What record keeping does a mentor need to undertake? Well, in actual fact, it's not pass or fail for the ECF. The ECF is CPD. So this isn't about them undertaking any assessments whatsoever. The appropriate body is still responsible for checking that new teachers receive their statutory entitlements and are fairly and consistently assessed at the end of year 2, and that they receive their programme of support and training around the ECF. So I hope that explains the ECF component parts. I'm going to go on now and try and address some of the other common questions. These are the ECF modules. So there are 5 modules in year 1, and you'll see that then in year 2, we move on to the other modules, but you'll notice that some of it, I don't like to say the word repeated, we use a spiral curriculum. So we like this term, the inquiry-led learning, because it deepens knowledge. So in module 1, in the first half term, you might look at setting those high expectations for learning and behaviour in your classroom. And we've got lots of case studies for different settings to support that. And you'll be looking at practical strategies, the ECTs will, for actually shaping the learning. When we go into year 2, it goes into more inquiry-led learning, but revisiting that. And then the ECTs are going to be required to we want them to experiment and practice with new techniques and methods within their classroom and discuss how successful and what the impact on learning has been with their mentor. If you have an ECT which is part-time, or for example, you have a new teacher which joins you in January rather than the September, our programme is flexible enough that they can focus on these first 5 modules, and we will enable them to complete their ECF training. And that's something that we have developed guidance on, and we will work with you. There is a big team at Best Practice, and we will support you and our delivery partners for when you have people may, for example, take paternity leave and they may be off, but there are ways that we can make our programme flexible to meet your needs. So please don't worry about that. That just gives an overview. I'm not going to go into the other modules because, as I say, these slides are a little bit wordy for me than I would normally use, but I would like you to have them for reference afterwards. The other thing that we are very committed to doing is we are very committed to making sure that all our learning materials are available to all schools that are delivering this in September, if not before. So if you enrol with us to deliver your full induction programme for the ECF, then we will make these available, and we would like your comments and reviews on our learning materials as early as late May, and we've got sessions in June where we're going to hold roundtable events, give you the learning materials and ask for your feedback on it. We'd also love you to get involved in contextualising those learning materials. So at the moment, we have case studies, whether you're an urban school, a rural school, for example, whether you have got a mainly primary setting or secondary. So we've already had one of our delivery partners that said, across our schools, we are going to have a group of secondary teachers, predominantly scientists. We would like the case studies or the accounts of practice or the video clips to be focused on that. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with them to contextualise the learning. And we'd very much like to do that with you. We're working with SEND schools and we're working with faith schools. So across the whole range of sectors in education, because the one thing I do know, having led a school, is it's very much about context. And for a new ECT, a new teacher going into the classroom, it is very much about context and the different settings that schools operate in, the different communities and all the different views of stakeholders. We want to get some of that culture and some of that contextualisation into their learning. And we can only do that by working closely with you. So this is Best Practices Early Career Development Programme for the ECTs. There will be an online conference at the beginning in September for 3 hours in year 1 and year 2. And that will be to familiarise ECTs with the ECF so that they can get to know our team. So they always know that there's somebody there to support them. And I would say we are going to be, one of the things that we do is we support our learners, to a great extent. So after 2 weeks, if we find that an ECT isn't engaging with the learning, we'll be sending them an email, offering support and saying to them, what can we do to help you? If after 4 weeks we find that they're not, they may come back to us and say, I've been off poorly, no probs, I'll catch up. Absolutely fine. We're there to help. But if after 4 weeks, for example, a mentor hasn't had a meeting with an ECT, or an ECT hasn't accessed to self-study materials, then we'll be emailing the ECT again, but we'll also be emailing you as a school and the delivery partner. And we'll be saying, right, what more can we do to help this person? Because what's really, really important to us is we're not going to impact on teachers and their knowledge and their ability and ultimately pupils if people aren't engaged. And we do know that early career teachers have got a lot on their plate, being it the first couple of years they're teaching. We also know that mentors have got a huge workload. So a mentor might be a head of maths, a head of English, they might be an assistant head or a deputy head, or it might be an induction lead in a multi-academy trust. It can be a variety of different people, but we do understand about workload, and that's what we're here for. Our aim is to make the learning as easy as possible for the ECTs and the mentors. So we've got these online conferences, then we have face-to-face training, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that in September, it would be lovely if we can hold the face-to-face training. It may not be possible. COVID restrictions may still be in place, or doing risk assessments and talking to you as schools, you may still not feel comfortable with it. But we are very versed now in actually putting the face-to-face training online. And I think, today demonstrates that everybody's getting used to Zoom sessions, team meetings, etc. So we have face-to-face events, and they are going to be 2-hour sessions. One of the things I keep getting asked is, at this present point in time, in my area, all the NQTs are off timetable on a Thursday afternoon. Can I please still have my face-to-face training events on a Thursday afternoon? Yes, of course you can. So we've got a calendar, because the early careers framework, it is packed with training. But what we've done is we have put weeks aside for the face-to-face training and for the online facilitated workshops. During that week, you can decide when you hold your training. So you might want it on that Thursday afternoon. You might want it as a twilight session. We will be more than happy to do the groupings for you, to organise that for you, and to fit in wherever possible with the requirements that you have. So there's the face-to-face, there's the online workshops, and you might say to me, I actually want my face-to-face events to be a group of primary colleagues who will work together. But when I'm doing my online facilitated workshops, I'd like it as a group of mixed ECTs from across the area so that they can all start to network with each other. Then we've got the school visits, which enhance that inquiry-based learning and encourage the ECTs to look outside of their school for best practice. And they will be scaffolded, and we will ensure, again, if heaven forbid, if COVID restrictions are still here by 2022 and 23, we will ensure that they still go ahead and they're virtual. But we're really hoping that we'll be able to go back to visiting other schools and getting best practice. And then you'll see at the bottom there the self-directed study and the mentor sessions, and that is what makes up the core induction programme. So hopefully that gives you a really good flavour and a really good overview. As I say, I'm going to go on to show you some sample materials, but once you are enrolled with us and you sign up with us, we're quite happy to share everything with you and give you early access to this so that you can start planning for next year. This is the mentor training package, and you'll see it closely mirrors the ECT training. And we're very keen on managing that workload for you. We do understand that mentors will come to this at different levels. So there may be a mentor that comes that actually has been mentoring NQTs for the last 5 years, has been supporting ITT students, and perhaps working with a range of universities and appropriate bodies. The mentoring for the ECT is slightly different, and hence, the training is really important, and that opportunity to network is important. But we also understand that we could have mentors who are just starting in your school in September, who are not used to mentoring new teachers, and they will need confidence building. So our package is nice and flexible, and the training is there to support people. We've got additional research, additional reading for those people that want it. And we've got the wider system resources and support. So you'll see peer-to-peer networking. Those are tailored events where we're sort of having 4 to 6 mentors together to discuss the issues and the challenges and some of the really nice things that have come out of the mentor meetings with ECTs. I won't go into any more detail on that because I'm going to show you the range of materials that we've got. I do just want to jump back to the early career development programme and just say, sometimes we have a new teacher that comes to us, an ECT, and they might have been a TA for the last 5 or 10 years, or they might have done a master's level qualification in behaviour management, for example. So one of the other questions that we get asked is, can the modules be done out of sequence? Yes, these modules can be done out of sequence. So if you find that you've got a child whisperer as a new teacher, and they are already really well versed and have expert knowledge and understanding of behaviour management and are able to apply those strategies in the classroom. However, they want to do more on assessment. It's an area that their ITT learning has thrown up is an area of need for them to develop. Then yes, you can do the modules out of sequence. And we intend to make the whole of year 1 available at the beginning, as I say, of the training. What we can't do is we can't do the face-to-face training and the online facilitated workshops out of sequence. So we would support you, but we would work with the mentor in order to say, right, well, the face-to-face training is going to be on module 1 in the first half term, because all of the different ECTs that will come to that session will have done different things. But we will give you the full calendar of events. But we want to make sure that you know that our programme is flexible. People have different starting points and different learning needs, just like the children do. So if I go on to just show you some examples here, we have a virtual learning environment called Canvas, and all of our programme is currently written and on there. So all of the lead providers, of which there are 6 lead providers across the country, are all going to be required to hand in year 1 programme content to the DFE on May the 14th, get my dates right. We have written all of our training programmes, and we have got the full core induction programme on Canvas. We've got lots and lots of case studies up there. We've already had Liverpool Hope University who have reviewed our learning materials so that we've got the academic rigour. They have ensured progression from ITT training, and they have added in extra research and reading so that people can move through these at their own pace and delve deeper into one subject, or as I say, perhaps skim some areas. There's going to be pre-deployment training, and I'm just going to show you this. These are some examples of the materials that we have developed, if it will come up. And I may need to... no, I'll come back to that because we'll get that up at the end. But I can show you some of the training materials that we've got. And as I say, what I'm going to do is invite people that work with us to our roundtable events so that we can show you our full package and we can have your review comments. And would also like more user testing. So we have got delivery partners that are already signed up across the whole country, and they are already reviewing our materials. But we would always welcome more comments, more user reviews, and as I say, certainly more contextualised learning materials. So that's an example of our mentor training programme that we've got, and we've got handbooks for you, we've got induction conferences. Mentor induction conferences, as I say, we will have one in June, one in July, and then one in September, so that those people, and I never expect people to work over the summer holidays, but I am aware that some people will want to start planning so that when it's a busy time in September, they're up and ready to run with their ECTs. This is an example of one of the audits that you will do on the modules, and you will see there that what the ECT has to do is they have to look at the teacher standards, and they have to look at the ECF framework, and they have to self-assess their own knowledge, whether it's emerging, developing, or secure. And that then is discussed with the mentor, and it will enable them to actually tailor the training so that it is right and differentiated for each of the ECTs at their different learning points. This is just another example of some of our mentor training, and this is module 1, week 3. We've made it nice and interactive. We want as many multimedia resources as we can. We've got video clips, we've got YouTube clips, we've got case studies, accounts of practice, data sets that people can do activities on. And we really want to make it as engaging as possible to make sure that them ECTs and the mentors are retained, engaged and learn throughout the training programme. This is an example of one of the mentor sessions, and I said to you, we are really aware of mentor workload. So for every single session, what we have done is we have brought it together here to say what the ECT is going to be learning and then what the mentor meeting activities should be. Now, these are suggested activities. So you will see there in the first 15 minutes, you will discuss with your ECT the different elements of that module and how they have applied that learning in their classroom. And then you will go on to plan and script the lesson for the following week, which might be on something slightly different. And it gives you some ideas as to whether they are emerging, developing or secure in their knowledge as to the activities that they could employ in their classroom. We don't want the mentor to have to go anywhere else. We don't want them having to go onto the DFE website and search for the ECF framework. We don't want them having to go onto the ECTs section of our website. We want it all neatly in one place so that the mentor can just refer to this and plan for their sessions with the ECTs. So I guess it's what's next for you, because the most important thing that I want you to get out of this presentation is what do you have to do next as a school. So we are assuming that the majority of participants that are here in the audience are schools wanting to know, okay, right at this moment in time, I have got so much that I am planning. How do I need to ensure that I can sign up to the ECF and have it delivered in September for my early career teachers? And what do I need to do for my mentors? So we've got further resources on our website, and you'll see there a screenshot of our website. We talk about what the benefits are. We've got further details about our programme, our training programme. We've got further details and frequently asked questions, and we've got all of what the DFE have said to schools on there. There is further information about funding and pricing, because if you do want to be a delivery partner with us, so if, for example, you work as a group of schools in an area currently supporting NQTs and you want to stay in that group to deliver the ECF, then we've got people like Lindsay, who's our partnership manager, who can get in touch with you. And there is funding available that we will give to you as a school on top of the DFE funding to deliver our training. And we will train up your facilitators for you. So there's lots more that we can do for you. And there are further resources on our website. But if as an individual school, all you want to do is make sure that you have got the early career framework training in place for your ECT and mentor in September, what you can do is you can go and express an interest and complete the form. And I'll put the link there and this will come out for you. And what it does is it asks you, it's about a page of A4 questions. It asks you for your school address, who the contact name would be, the number of ECTs that you will be expecting next year. And I'm fully aware that you might not know that at the moment. It might be none. It might actually be 4, because you won't have actually passed the deadline for resignations yet. You also might not know whether you want 1 mentor to 1 ECT. You might be thinking, do you know what? I'm going to have 2 ECTs and only 1 mentor. We are suggesting and saying, the DFE say the ideal is 1-to-1, and of course, you know, that is the ideal. We are working on about a 1 to 1.5 ratio, but equally we do understand that within your setting, it may be different, and we will work with you on that. So that's all we need to know from you, is just that expression of interest from you that you would like us to deliver the full induction programme to you. After that, it is you as a school that have the choice. The DFE will be writing to you in the next 2 weeks, and they're going to give you details on how to log on to their ECF portal. You have to log on to the DFE website, to their portal, and actually, again, list how many ECTs you are expecting to have in September. Once you've done that, we can then log on to the same site and identify ourselves as your lead provider if you've signed up with us. So it's all down to you now. And I do know lots of people are doing due diligence and they're looking at which provider to use, and that's really, really important because you have to use the right provider for you. Many of you on here, I think I know because you deliver MPQs with us and you've got people that have undertaken training with us, either in EYITT, maybe a Senko qualification, or as I say, one of our MPQs. So I know that I've got lots of people on here that I know. I've got schools that I've worked with in the past as a leader of education, etc. But yeah, we can help you. We can take that burden away from you. If you express an interest with us and fill out the brief application form, you then can change your mind when you go onto the DFE website, but we can then do the rest for you. So if you want something in place, we would encourage you to fill out the form. When the DFE write to you, log on to their website, register your number of ECTs, and then we can identify ourselves as your training provider. I'm going to leave that up now because that's our website, Best Practice Net, Early Career Framework. That's the link to enrol your school. But if there are any other questions, and I mean this, please contact us at CPD. So if we don't answer your question, and I know Lindsay and Hamish are now going to throw questions at me, if we don't answer your question, as I said at the beginning, in enough detail, please contact us again and we will do our best to support you. And if there is anybody out there that would like an in-depth meeting with us about partnership working or delivery, we'd be more than happy to do that. Thank you, Hamish.
Thank you, Kelly, for the presentation. We have had some questions come through. We've done our best just to answer a couple of them where we knew the answers and were able to do so. But unfortunately, the majority of them are very specific. So probably best to try and deal with, if we can now, or possibly via an FAQ if we end up running out of time. But our so I'm just going to move my question so I can talk at the computer. So our most popular question that we had was around if there was two ECTs from the same subject, do they each need one-to-one time with a mentor? And if so, does that double the funding provided? And would the mentor need sort of a 10% reduced timetable as opposed to a 5% reduced timetable? So it's a query around if there's two colleagues basically from the same school, can they double up and say make some efficiencies, I think.
Yeah. So if you have one mentor that has an hour meeting with two ECTs, you would receive the funding for your two ECTs and your one mentor. If your one mentor has 1 hour with one ECT and 1 hour with another ECT, then you will obviously receive the funding as if it was two mentors because they are spending the one-to-one time. So I think as regards that, as I said, we've got some schools that are saying actually we're going to have 1 to 3. That's, it's unusual that it's any more than that. And we are working on the basis that it will be about 1 to 1.5. In the majority of cases, as I said to you, we've already got thousands of schools which have already signed a partnership agreement with us that we will be delivering to. And I'd say we're slightly under that ratio. I'd say it's more like 1.2 to 1.3 is the average. But yes, the funding will depend on the amount of time, whether it's one-to-one, it can be the same person, but remember, they will only attend the training once. So you'll only be able to claim for one lot of the training. It's the amount of time that they spend off timetable.
Thanks for that, Kelly. The next most popular one that we had was, do schools have to commit to an ECT for 2 years? For example, they may have appointed an NQT for 1 year for maternity cover or a similar temporary post. Can this happen, or is it a must be 2 years for that?
No, really popular question. So when I used to appoint people, I would appoint people sometimes on a 1 year temporary contract. And obviously they have their an induction period of 3 months. Normally, but no, there is no requirement to take somebody on for 2 years, and there is a process and policies that all of the lead providers have in place should an ECT wish to move school, because that will happen. It's normally, we're hoping that somebody will stay in a school for the first 2 years, but we're well aware that it does happen that they will move schools, and we will work with you and with the other lead provider and the delivery partner to make sure that the transition for ECTs is really smooth. If they want to move after year 1, that's fine, and we can facilitate that.
Thanks, Kelly. The next one might be a quick one in relation to, I guess, our map of partners, but it'd be where would the face-to-face events be held? So it might be a tricky one to answer, but hopefully close by, I think might be our target answer for that.
Hamish, I think you're totally right, yes. So where we've already got delivery partners signed up, for example, if we look at a teaching school hub can be really large and can be spread out across quite a significant area in the country. But what most of the teaching school hubs have done is identified 2 or 3 schools across their teaching school hub area that will deliver the training, the face-to-face training. If you as a group of schools want to sign up to us, or if you as an individual school want to sign up to us, we will create a delivery partner and a network local to you. And so the idea is, like Hamish says, very local to you. They are 2-hour sessions. We do not want somebody travelling 50 to 100 miles. I do accept that there will be some small rural schools where there could be some difficulty in that. We will do our best, absolute best, to minimise the travel for both mentors and ECTs and find the closest delivery place for you to attend the training.
Thanks, Kelly. Another one around the events and the timings for the conferences. So will the times of the conferences be flexible? This colleague has got 4 ECTs in quite a small sized school, so they couldn't release all 4 of their ECTs at the same time. So would there be a bit of flexibility or opportunities to attend different timings perhaps?
Yeah, so in terms of the first induction conferences, as I said, we've actually already planned that for the mentors. There'll be one in June, there'll be one in July, and there'll be one in September. They will also all be recorded so that people can listen to the recording if they're not able to attend. With regards to the ECT conference, I would like to think that we would be holding sort of like regional conferences. So there will be a range of different times and different days that people can attend those initial conferences. So yes, we fully accept that it's very difficult for ECTs to be out of school altogether. If you're a small school, to have 4 teachers out can be very difficult.
Thanks, Kelly. Another popular one that we'd had was around how does the ECF differ from using the county NQT induction programme for CPD, etc. So I'm hoping that that makes sense to you, Kelly. Are you able to answer that one?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you know, I started as a head in Warwickshire, and so we used to use North Warwickshire heads had an NQT training programme for the first year for our NQTs. In terms of how it differs, it's very much structured around the ECF framework, and it's now over 2 years with structured mentor meetings. So, you know, the training is very different, the framework is different, the ITT framework has been revised, but yeah, it builds on. And what I'm hoping is we're working with many people and local authorities, actually, as I say, who have already signed up to be our partners, who are actually using some of their NQT training and adapting that and working with us to provide us with contextualised materials. So we'd like to think, don't throw away the bathwater. You know, we want to build on what is already good practice out there. And a lot of the framework, because it links to the teacher standards, should link in to the NQT training that you were doing last year, but it builds on it and it enhances it and it goes further over the 2 years in a more structured approach.
Thank you. Got a query around what would happen to staff who are on 40% or 60% timetables for their first year? Would they still be eligible for the ECF?
Yeah, all teachers, when they start their career, will be eligible for the ECF. And we have actually got a structured programme for people that are part-time, either 40 or 60%, whatever it might be. They would, I mean, you know, if you've got somebody that is significantly reduced timetable, so if you're looking at somebody that's on, I would say anything under probably 40% timetable, they may find it difficult to complete it all within 2 years, just as they may find it difficult to complete and pass the assessment with the appropriate body. But, you know, our aim is to ensure that those first 5 modules are covered fully and the flexibility in delivery will be offered to part-time ECTs. So I don't really want to put it as a percentage as to anything under 40%, and they might need to do some additional time. But, you know, we have looked at anybody that's part-time at around half the timetable will complete the first 5 modules, and that will enable them to complete all of the ECF training after the first 2 years.
Thank you. Got quite a good question here. If you commit to one method of delivery, e.g. one of the online full induction programs, and then you subsequently decide to change the mode of delivery to something more, e.g. school-led, are you able to change that mid-engagement, mid-cycle? And if so, do we know yet who we would be informing if that was a request?
Yeah, so I mean, we as a lead provider, I can't speak for the other lead providers. We as a lead provider have partnership agreements. We don't have contracts. I do think that some of the others do, but we have a partnership agreement. So we have never had anybody who has pulled out of a partnership agreement with us with MPQs because they don't like our mode of delivery. But if you did actually decide as a school that you wanted the full induction programme, and then you wanted to go to perhaps option 1 or 2 and do it yourself, I think it would be for us to work with you and say to you, how can we hand over to you for you to do that? You know, we would have to work with the DFE with regards to funding and what we'd already received and what we might have to give back. And you might have to do the same with the DFE if you chose to change your mode of delivery. But certainly, as is partnership agreements, which can be terminated. So, you know, we're not holding you to anything. There would be copyright on all the materials, etc. I think that's such a unique question that we would prefer to deal with it with an individual delivery partner or an individual school, because we are a school-led system. And you will have different reasons if you change from the full induction programme, why you want to do it. And I'd like to think actually, you know, rather than leaving us, it would be a joint decision, and we can help you move over to one of the other options.
Thanks, Kelly. We've got a question around, I'm not sure if we may have already answered this in part, but would the face-to-face training and conferences always take place on the same day each week, as this might help schools to plan their cover? So I'm not sure if we'd be able to necessarily guarantee it. It might depend on the group and if that was delivered in partner with one of our partner schools. But could you elaborate on that any further, or do we think it's just group by group?
Yeah, I mean, if you are already in a group of schools, like I said to you, and you wanted to ensure that your training took place on a Thursday afternoon between 3:30 and 5 o'clock, for example, then we can ensure that that happens for you. If you're an individual school that's going to work with one of our delivery partners, we would have to try and see what that delivery partner can facilitate for you. But it would be a case of you working with us, telling us what you want, and us trying our best to make sure that that happens for you.
Thanks, Kelly. Got a comment and a question around the demand, I suppose, on the time for the mentors. So what non-contact time are they expected to have, and how will this be covered financially, as the previously mentioned funding wouldn't be enough cover for this? So I think colleagues identified they think the time commitment for the mentor might be slightly above what the estimation or the funding's aligned with. Did you have any comment around that one at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult one for me to answer, because the funding is set by the DFE, not by us. So the mentor, if I go back to the number of hours for the mentors here, the number of hours is set. So there are 36 hours of facilitated training, which is backfilled, and I can't tell you the money that you will receive for that, but the DFE have confirmed that they will pay those 36 hours for mentors to do the training. And then there is the 59 hours over the 2 years of the mentor meetings, which, as you will have seen on the table here, it's a rounded cost. I really do accept that that cost may not cover, and probably won't cover, the 59 hours, but the DFE funding direct to the school to cover the mentor is decided by the DFE, not by us. Thanks,
Kelly. I had a question around, I think someone's attended some other webinars perhaps about the ECF, and they've said that the other webinars they've attended have suggested that the only way to sign up to a lead provider is via a teaching school hub. Is this correct? As this would mean that they are compelled to work with the lead provider selected by their local teaching school hub. Are you able to comment on that at all?
Yeah, I've got a really strong comment on that actually, because the TES published an article online which said that every school must sign up to a lead provider via their teaching school hub. Now, the DfE policy at the moment and the educational landscape is that we've got our 87 teaching school hubs, and I fully support this. And they have got targets for their delivery of MPQs and ECF and wider CPD. On the other hand, the DfE is very much in favour of schools having their own choice. So if you don't want to work with your local teaching school hub in the delivery of this, and you would like to choose your own lead provider or work with a group of schools in your area which you've been working with for a number of years, then that's fine. It is up to you as a school. And if I go back to here, it's up to you as a school to enrol for the induction programme via the DfE portal to say how many ECTs you're expecting to have next year. And then if you have filled out an expression of interest or an application form with us, that's all we need. We can then go in and identify ourselves as your lead provider. So yes, we've heard this. We have national rollout contract meetings with the DfE on a fortnightly basis. We've had it confirmed via email that it is the school's choice. So I know there's a slight conflict there in what I'm saying about teaching school hubs, and we do accept this. You know, we're working with a whole range of delivery partners. We've got a number of teaching school hubs who are working with us, who really want all their schools in their area to work with them with one lead provider. I do understand where this has come from, but having been a head myself, I have to tell you, you have the choice. So if you are an induction lead or you are a head teacher, you have the choice as to which lead provider you use.
Thanks there, Kelly. We do have quite a number of questions still, so I'm just going to use this opportunity just to pause and say that I don't think we'll have time to get to the bottom of the list this evening. But I just wanted to reassure attendees that if you do have a question that hasn't yet been answered, if you have popped it into the Q&A section of the briefing this evening, we'll make sure that we do download a list of all the questions and all the answers that we've previously given, and we will send that round as a bit of an FAQ. So just looking at the time, I think we've possibly got time for maybe one or two more questions.
Hamish, I'm just looking at my time as well. We actually had this session planned for 4:30 till 5:30, but I think that potentially we could go on slightly longer. So what I would actually like to do at this point is say to anybody that's in the audience that has listened, that as Hamish said, we will send out this recording, we will send out all these slides. You can ask us individual questions via the email address on here, or through the Q&A, which we'll address individually. But if you do want to actually leave this session now, then please do. If you want to stay and listen to as many of the questions as possible, that's up to you. But I would like to say to those people that want to go and have their dinner or some family time, thank you for listening, and please get in touch with us on an individual basis if we can support you any further. Hamish, shall we carry on and pick up a few more and see how many we can get done?
Yeah, we can rattle through a few of them. We've got over 50 still though, and we've already answered sort of 15. So just looking at the pace at which we're answering versus how quick they're coming in, I think we will probably have to draw an end to it at some stage. But we've got some popular ones still, so definitely work our way down the top ones. So the top one we've got at the moment is actually a question regarding if we have any information for the online training from the Ambition Institute funded by the DfE, and is it statutory? So I'm not sure if you've got any insight to that at all, Kelly.
Yeah,
for them.
Yeah, there are 6 lead providers. We all have the deadline of the 14th of May to hand in our year 1 materials. None of the Ambition Institute is compulsory unless you're signed up to them as a lead provider. So if you are signed up to them as a lead provider, you will need to speak to them about which of their training is compulsory. All I can say to you is if you sign up with us, then no, you won't be accessing any of the other materials from any of the other lead providers. It is just the training programme that we will provide you with.
Thanks, Kelly. And then if you have I think we might have answered this one actually as we went earlier, but if you have an NQT for a year only, then do you receive half of the money? Question mark.
If you have an NQT for the first year, you won't receive any of the additional funding. You'll receive funding that you already naturally get for their 10% off timetable, but I gather that that is already rolled into school budgets. The additional DFE funding for the Early Careers Framework is for the additional activities in year 2.
Thank you. Is there any support for the teachers in their second year that have had an interrupted NQT and first RQT year due to COVID?
Yeah, so that goes back to our policy and our flexibility of our timetable, that if somebody has missed, say, for example, 2 to 3 months due to having long COVID in their first year of teaching, then we can actually catch them up in the second year. But we won't be taking any more of their time. We'll be tailoring the modules that they do and enabling them to cover the first 5 modules of the ECF in its entirety. And then it would depend how much time that they had missed as to how we flexed the timetable and the calendar for them. We do that with you on an individual basis to make sure that they covered as much as possible but weren't overloaded.
Thanks for that one. Working as part of a MAT, do we have to sign up schools individually, or is it possible to sign up as a trust?
No, sorry, I do apologise. You can sign up to us as a trust, but we would still need each of the individual schools' details, because the way that the DFE have organised their portal is that each school has to go on, identify their number of ECTs, and then we as a lead provider, we can't just go on and say, right, we're going to work with that multi-academy trust and it's got 9 schools associated with it. We have to go on and actually identify each individual school. But please do, if you are a multi-academy trust, you can send us one expression of interest, or perhaps email us separately with each of the school names, and we will do the rest for you.
Thank you. Is there an expectation that a mentor in year 1 also has 10% release to match the early career teacher? If so, is there funding for that?
It's not 10% release, no. What you get for the mentor is the mentor timetabled meetings and the 36 hours of training, and that's what's funded.
Thank you. If you have a 2-week timetable, can the mentor meetings be once per 2 weeks? If a mentor is doing an observation, are they also expected to have a mentor meeting in that same week?
No, I'm quite happy. Some people have 30-minute lessons, so you might have 2 half-an-hour meetings in a week. Some people will have a fortnightly timetable, and so in which case you might have an extended mentor meeting once a fortnight. It is flexible to work through the modules like that.
Thank you. We've got one here that I think we did address earlier, but where do the face-to-face sessions take place, and how does this work for MATs that are spread across multiple counties? So the first bit of that is we should have group locations dotted around the UK, hopefully one that's within a reasonable travelling distance of the specific school. Where you've got multiple schools, I would imagine that because we've got that sort of UK partner map, we should just be able to link up those individual schools with the closest group available, yeah?
We've got a really strong partnership team. Lindsay's here representing tonight, but we've got a partnership director, we've got programme coordinators. What we would encourage you to do, I think that's quite an individual question. My response would be, like you said, Hamish, the face-to-face delivery will be as close as possible to your school and to where your ECT is located. But what I would encourage you to do is get into contact with us, tell us the geography that you want us to work within, and we will plan those for you according to where you either want them or where we think we can get it closest to you. And because we cover the whole country, yes, we should be able to facilitate that. I'm saying no problem confidently, but yes, we've got a whole team that will do that and organise that for you. So please get in touch on an individual basis if it's about where you want your face-to-face events to take place, when you'd like them to take place, and sort of, you know, as I say, we will plan that for you, and we will book all the facilities for you. We will do everything, all of the group organisation, the registration, the live evaluations afterwards. You will get an attendance register. All of that will be done for you. Thank
you. I've had a question. it's related again to the event, so I'm just going to skip that one and move down because we definitely have answered that one. So is there any costs to the school specifically?
If you take up the full induction package, no, there will be no costs to you whatsoever. As I said, there is the opportunity for us to provide more funding to you if you want to be a delivery partner and you want to host the events and you want one of your teachers to be a facilitator. So we are aiming for groups of a minimum of 12 because sometimes people drop out, up to a sort of like maximum of 24, maybe even slightly larger if you feel that's appropriate. But we will train the people to facilitate, your people to facilitate for free. And then we will also pay you for that facilitation and pay you for venue hire and refreshments, etc. But again, that's something that I don't want to get into on this call. If you contact us because you would be keen to be a delivery partner with us and have a group of schools attached to you, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you. Good question here. So it's, I've just lost it. Those who are NQTs this year, will they be on their second year next year, or will they only be in their first year ECTs from next year? So
the ECF national rollout starts as of this year. So all newly qualified teachers will start the ECF programme in September 2021. An NQT that is currently an NQT this year in 2020-2021, they will not be classed as an ECT and will not access the ECF. Slightly different if you're on the early rollout, but to all intents and purposes for the national rollout, an ECT will start in September 2021 and have 2 years of structured training.
Thank you. Just had one that's shot up actually to the top of my list, so I think it's got some recent upvotes. So I'm gonna read this one out. So whilst the ECF is CPD, do the ECTs get assessed as to whether they have passed or failed the 2-year programme?
No. I want to be really clear about that one again. The ECF is training and the appropriate body is responsible for assessing them at the end of the 2 years for fully qualified teacher status.
Thank you. Sorry, sort of veering back almost to the topic which we were speaking about beforehand. So if you have NQTs going into year 2, would it be possible for them to do this in year 2 with best practice if they have done this with another provider in year 1? So that might be a similar question around sort of changing their engagement route perhaps with the qualification.
Thanks, Hamish. And you know what? This is something that I should have actually addressed right at the beginning. Another question that we've had private schools, independent schools contact us. They don't get funding off the DFE, obviously, and they wanted to know how much would we charge to deliver the training. Now, obviously, if you've had an NQT that has done it with a provider during the early rollout this year, we wouldn't receive funding for them in their second year. So it's something that we would want to discuss with you on an individual basis. It's something where if there are a small number, we may be able to fit them into our training programmes, but we'd have to discuss that on an individual basis.
Thank you. Got a couple here that we might be able to do quick fire. I'm conscious about the times though. So will the materials for the whole 2 years be ready by the end of May, face-to-face, online and self-directed study? Also, is it the same timeline for the mentor training resources?
Is it the same timeline for what, sorry, Hamish? Sorry,
the mentor training resources. So the trainee and the mentor.
Yeah, so as I said to you, all 6 lead providers have to have the whole of year 1 ready to give to the DFE by May the 14th. They're not actually signed off by the Minister until September the 17th, but we will have all of year 1 ready. Will we have all of year 2 ready? It's being written at the moment. It will be ready by the end of this year, but it won't have been reviewed by Liverpool Hope University or had user testing. So we wouldn't necessarily be looking at releasing year 2 materials at this point in time, but we would be happy to start sharing those with our partners as they sign up to us going into next year.
Thank you. Does the mentor need to have the same subject as their ECT? Is there support and training for the ECT lead?
You would decide that as a school. So you may have your ECT supported. If it's a maths ECT, for example, the head of maths may be supporting them with their subject knowledge, and you may have a different mentor who might be an assistant head in your school who is responsible for all new teachers. That would be how you structure it. They are not required to be a subject-specific mentor, neither are they required to be SLT as mentors, and a mentor doesn't have to necessarily be in your school. So if you're working within a multi-academy trust, and you've got an induction lead, I would say that this is a personal opinion, they definitely need to understand the culture and the context of your school, but how you organise your mentors and who you choose to be mentors for ECTs is up to you as a school.
Thank you. Have assessments points been removed, so there is no pass/fail for the NQT?
There is no pass or fail for the ECF. However, the appropriate body will still award at the end of the 2 years the fully qualified teacher status.
Brilliant, thank you. Just having a little look to see if there's any really prevalent ones here. Oh, I've seen this one's got a couple of upvotes recently. So, this is actually a multi-part question, so I'm going to have to read it to you in segments. Apologies. Will the NQT pay increase/change in the second year?
I'm not aware of any rises that are due to teachers next year. That's government policy. So I think in terms of pay rises for NQTs, I can't comment on that one.
Part 2, can we still change schools if on a temporary contract like the way we can do now for e.g. terms in different schools? So I guess it's whether you can engage with the programme whilst potentially working at different settings.
Yeah, I mean, the ECF framework is covered by all of the lead providers training. We do have slightly different sequencing and curriculum. I do understand what you're saying, actually, and it would be slightly more difficult if you were having temporary one-term contracts, for example, as an ECT, and you were moving in between schools, but we would still support you. So if you're an ECT that's one school, we would still support you moving into another school. But I couldn't promise that if you are moving around different schools on a really regular basis that you would get the most out of the ECF training. But yeah, it is possible to access it.
Thank you. Part 3 is, after completing ECF after 2 years, do we automatically get the Leadership National Award?
I'm not aware what the Leadership National Award is, I'm afraid, so I don't. I'm going to take the fifth on that one.
defer answering that one. That's fine.
We will look it up. We will look up that and then come back to you.
I think we might have addressed this one, but is there a pass/fail? Sorry, my question has just disappeared off the screen. Let me go find it again. Is there a pass/fail? If we fail, would we need to do the NQT again?
No, I mean, yes, I think we've addressed this. There's no pass or fail to the ECF, but at the end of the 2 years, you will be assessed by an appropriate body as to whether you have met the teacher standards.
And the final part, again, not sure if we'd be able to comment on this, but will the term RQT still be used after the ECF training?
We are moving away from the terms NQT and RQT, and it is an ECT now, an early career teacher, and that is a teacher in their first 2 years of teaching.
Brilliant. I'm just trying to have a quick scan through the questions to see if there are some differentiated ones that are things that we've definitely not answered before. I think we'll probably have to use this one as the last one, as I think we've probably addressed most other ones just in passing or during the briefing earlier, but we will obviously address them as an FAQ and share that tomorrow. But the final one that I'll ask you, Kelly, is, can a teacher in their 3rd year of teaching, coming this September, that's when they'll be starting their 3rd year, can they access the course in September, given that there's been so much disruption caused by COVID? Is there any kind of flexibility there, I guess?
I mean, the honest answer would be we are not going to receive funding for you in your 3rd year of teaching. As I said to you, what we are hoping to do is put together a package for teachers in private schools, perhaps teachers in international schools, and that might apply to you, whereby we can put together a training package and offer it at a reduced cost so that you can access it. But in terms of the DFE funding, it wouldn't be available in the third year. But yeah, we would like to try to work towards other people being able to access this, but that's something that we're putting together over the next month or two.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Kelly. So we've, despite us motoring for the last 15 minutes, we still have 50 questions that are here, because I think as we've answered one, a new one has come through. So it's a bit like Fantasia with questions coming. So what I think we'll probably have to do is, unfortunately, draw a little bit of a line here for the live session today. We'll look to draw the recording to a close, but for any colleagues that are still here with a question that hasn't yet been answered, don't worry, we'll download those this evening, have a review of everything, and we'll try to issue that FAQ alongside the recording tomorrow as soon as we're able to do so. So yeah, I think I'll say thanks here. Kelly, I don't know if you want to say a little final thanks, goodbye before we stop the recording.
Yeah, it's after school, so thank you for attending. Really appreciate it. We'll get back to you with all the responses. If there is anything that we can do for you, please get in touch with us. And I look forward to working with many of you. So thanks again.
Thanks again.